Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of the much awaited event that is the SpaceX Starship Integrated Flight Test 4. We are currently awaiting for the Starship to launch at 7 a.m. Central Time, which will be 8 a.m. Eastern Time, 5 a.m. Pacific Time, and 12 p.m. UTC. The Starship will be launching from Starbase, Texas. So as the webcast, we still have some time to webcast to begin. So till then, let's discuss something about Starship. Starship is the behemoth under development by SpaceX and is a fully reusable launch vehicle designed for deep space exploration. SpaceX Starship spacecraft and Super Heavy rocket, collectively referred to as Starship, represent a fully reusable transportation system designed to carry both crew and cargo to Earth orbit, the Moon, Mars, and beyond. Starship is the world's most powerful launch vehicle ever developed, capable of carrying up to 150 metric tons fully reusable and 250 metric tons expandable. It is 121 meters tall, that is 397 feet, and 9 meters wide, that is 29.5 feet, and has a payload capacity of 100 to 150 ton, which is fully reusable. So moving on, we are having the first stage booster. Also, it is generally for Starship, it is referred as Super Heavy booster, which acts as a first stage booster, or simply a booster, you can say, of the Starship launch system, responsible for lifting Starship out of Earth's atmosphere, and it is 71 meters tall, that is 232 feet, and 9 meters wide, that is 29.5 feet, and has a propellant capacity of 3,400 ton. It can produce 7,590 thrust force, that is, it is capable of producing a thrust force equivalent to 7,590 times the force of gravity. Made of stainless steel rings stacked and welded together, powered by 33 Raptor engines using subcooled liquid methane and liquid oxygen, that is LOX. Super Heavy is fully reusable and will re-enter Earth's atmosphere to land back at the launch site. Moving on, next we have is the Starship, or generally it is termed as ship only. The upper stage and spacecraft designed to carry crew and cargo to various destinations. Starship is fully reusable spacecraft and second stage of the Starship system. The vehicle comes in several different configurations, which offers an integrated payload section and is capable of carrying crew and cargo to Earth orbit, the Moon, Mars, and beyond. Starship is also capable of point-to-point transport on Earth, enabling travel to anywhere in the world in 1 hour or less. Also made of stainless steel rings with a slightly smaller diameter than the Super Heavy. It is 50 meters tall, that is 165 feet, and 9 meters wide, that is 29.5 feet, and has a propellant capacity of 1200 ton. It can produce 1500 thrust force, that is, it is capable of producing a thrust force equivalent to 1500 times the force of gravity. Powered by a cluster of Raptor engines, likely 6 of them for the current iteration. Now please allow us a couple of seconds. Let me see why the stream is not starting yet, or maybe there is a glitch which I am facing here. Oh, so actually we have more 30 minutes to go. Let's see it in a bigger screen. Yeah, it is still not updated yet here. So now it is more 30 minutes to go. We are having 30 minutes to discuss about Starship a little more. So we were discussing about the ship, and just a second before moving on, let me welcome Confession at 3 a.m. Thanks for joining us. And we thought that you will be at work right now, but still you joined us. For that, we are grateful. Now, please enjoy the stream while we move on with the details of the Starship. So the key components within the Starship includes the header tanks, which are smaller tanks located on top, used for propellant during landing and maneuvering. Also, we have main tanks, which are larger tanks holding the primary propellant, that is the liquid methane and liquid oxygen, for the main engines. Then we have a payload bay, which is a spacious compartment for housing cargo or passengers. And the most important thing, that is the heat shield. These are the large ablative heat shield located at the blunt end of the Starship to protect it during the re-entry. Also, we have flap control system, which utilizes flaps on the hull for maneuvering during flight and re-entry. Next, we have the thrusters. So Starship utilizes various thruster systems for different purposes. Likewise, Raptor engines, which are the main engines providing the primary thrust for launch and orbital maneuvers. About this, we will be discussing in more details a little later. Then it uses reaction control system, that is the RCS, small thrusters used for attitude control and maneuvering in space. Next, also Starship has grid fins, and to be specific, it has 4 hypersonic grid fins located at the base of the Starship, used for additional control during high-speed atmospheric re-entry. So now moving on, let's discuss about the Raptor engines. The Raptor engine stands as the beating heart of Starship, the ambitious launch vehicle by SpaceX. This powerful and innovative engine, along with its specialized variant, the Raptor vacuum engine, is integral to Starship's success and future missions. The mighty Raptor is a full flow staged combustion rocket engine that uses liquid methane and liquid oxygen as propellant. Each Raptor engine produces an impressive 14,700 kilonewton of thrust at sea level, making it one of the most powerful rocket engines currently operational. It features a complex staged combustion cycle which burns fuel in stages to extract maximum power from the propellants. Its highly efficient turbopumps feed these propellants into the engine at high pressure, contributing to its exceptional performance. Additionally, the engine utilizes regenerative cooling where the propellants themselves cool critical components, thereby improving engine life and efficiency. The choice of methane fuel offers several advantages over traditional kerosene fuels. Methane burns cleaner, reducing soot buildup, and can potentially be produced on Mars using in situ resource utilization, that is acronymed as ISRU techniques. Reusability is a core aspect of Starship's design philosophy, and Raptor engines are engineered to be reused multiple times after post-flight inspection and refurbishment. The specialized Raptor vacuum engine, that is acronymed as RVAC, in Falcon 9 we say the Merlin engines used for the vacuum as MVAC, so here it is RVAC. So what I was saying, that the specialized Raptor vacuum engine is optimized for operation in the vacuum of space. It is quite similar to the Merlin engine, as I said, that is the MVAC engine. While based on the standard Raptor engine, it incorporates an extended regeneratively cooled nozzle. This longer nozzle allows for more efficient expansion of the exhaust gases in near vacuum conditions, resulting in a higher specific impulse. Now, speaking of specific impulse, that measures the engine's efficiency in converting propellant into thrust, and for the Raptor vacuum engine, which estimates that it could be around 380 seconds compared to the standard Raptor's 330 seconds. The Raptor engine is primarily primarily used on the Starship upper stage, providing the main thrust for orbital maneuvers and deep space travel. Starship utilizes a combination of both Raptor and Raptor vacuum engines, equipping the current design with 6 Raptor engines, 3 of which are Raptor vacuum engines specifically designed for space. The sea-level Raptor engines positioned lower on the vehicle are responsible for liftoff and atmospheric ascent, while the Raptor vacuum engines located higher on Starship take over as the primary source of thrust once the vehicle reaches the vacuum of space. By combining the power of Raptor and Raptor vacuum engines, Starship achieves the necessary thrust for launch, atmospheric flight, and efficient space travel. This powerful synergy paves the way for a future of deep space exploration, demonstrating SpaceX commitment to advancing space technology and achieving ambitious goals. Before moving on, would like to welcome Vlad. Welcome back, Vlad. Hope your exam went well. And as of the docking of Starliner, I guess we won't be able to because SpaceX started to push its launch time already. So maybe the time will be coinciding with the Starliner docking stream. So let's see. If possible, I will be surely doing so. But anyways, thanks for joining us back again and to Confusion at 3 a.m. Thanks for your inspiring words. But so far as I am concerned, I feel that still more is to make, like, still more I can develop myself or the stream to be looking good and be appealing to others. But still, as for now, as you said, thanks for your inspiring words. So Vlad is making the Discord channel for us. Thanks. But anyways, you make it, but I will be doing the last minute tweaks anyhow because you know me. I am a computer science engineer and I am a little skeptical about things. So anyways, I will be doing things to make it more towards the perfection. And what, you will be making a co-owner, not the owner? Wow, good. That's good. You are making a Discord channel for this channel and you will be making the owner as the co-owner. Anyways, that's funny. Anyways, just joking. And so let me allow to move on and to discuss the things for today's mission. So that let's talk about the trajectory. As far as SpaceX reports, the trajectory of Starship, that is the Flight 4, will fly in a similar trajectory as the previous flight test, that is the Starship Flight 3, with Starship targeted to splash down in the Indian Ocean. This flight path does not require a deorbit burn, for re-entry, maximizing public safety while still providing the opportunity to meet the primary objective of a controlled Starship re-entry. It will undergo a landing burn and a soft splashdown in the Gulf of Mexico with the Super Heavy booster and achieving a controlled entry of Starship. Starship is designed for in-flight refueling, allowing for deeper space mission beyond Earth. The internal design of Starship is still under development, with concepts including passenger cabins and laboratory areas. Right now on your screen you are seeing the trajectory for the flight 4, which is completely similar to the previous flight, that is the flight 3rd, that is the integrated test flight 3 of Starship. So now let's discuss about a little of the IFT-3, that is the flight 3 of Starship, and some couple of difference which we will be having today on the IFT-4. So the in case of IFT-3 that launched on March 14th back in 2024, Starship IFT-3 was the third integrated flight test of the SpaceX Starship launch vehicle. It aimed to achieve a full duration second stage burn and reach orbital velocity. Starship IFT was a significant milestone for SpaceX, achieving orbital velocity with a full mission payload. It demonstrated key maneuvers including relay transfer and propellant demonstration. However, its journey concluded with a hard splashdown of both stages. Now let's talk about the key achievements made in IFT-3. That is, it successfully completed a full duration second stage burn, reaching the intended orbital velocity for the first time. Provided valuable data on high altitude performance and engine operation, and did enabled live video streaming via Starlink during re-entry, a first for a Starship flight. Right now you are seeing the same on your screen. Now speaking of the challenges it faced during the integrated test flight 3, the Starship broke up during re-entry due to unplanned roll and excessive heating. Super Heavy booster experienced a partial engine shutdown during boost back, and roll control issues were identified as the most likely cause of the uncontrolled re-entry. Now coming to today's launch, that is the IFT-4. Today SpaceX have complete different goals. The launch is scheduled for on June 6th. As of today, Starship IFT-4 completely shifts focus from achieving orbit to demonstrating reusability. The primary objectives will be to execute a landing burn and a soft splashdown in the Gulf of Mexico with the Super Heavy booster. To achieve a controlled entry and landing of the Starship upper stage, the mission shifts focus from reaching orbit to showcasing reusability. Unlike IFT-3, IFT-4 will not perform the same maneuvers but will aim for a single soft splashdown with powered descent. The heavy superstructure has been optimized, featuring a jettison hot stage ring to reduce mass and additionally roll control thrusters for improved maneuverability. So now speaking about the key differences from IFT which today's IFT-4 will be having. It will be excluding maneuvers planned for IFT-3 such as propellant transfer and payload bay door demonstration. IFT-4 will be aiming for a powered soft splashdown for Starship instead of a hard landing. Super Heavy booster will jettison the hot stage ring to reduce mass during descent. And additionally, roll control thrusters have been incorporated on the Starship to address previous issues which we faced on the third integrated flight test. So the expected outcomes are a successful landing of both Starship and Super Heavy, which will be a major milestone towards full reusability, and the gathered data will be crucial for further development and future orbital launch attempts. These scenes which you are seeing, these are from the third integrated flight test, which we did really enjoyed for the first time during the IFTs of Starship. We did got these visuals. Hopefully today we will be getting more good outcomes from this fourth integrated flight test. Now let's break down the key differences between Starship IFT and IFT-4. The table highlights the key differences between Starship IFT-3 and the upcoming IFT-4. So let's dive deeper into each aspect. The primary goals. The IFT-3 was focused on pushing the boundaries of the Starship system. Its objective was to achieve orbital velocity, a crucial step for future space mission. In contrast, today the IFT-4 will prioritize reusability, a critical factor for cost-effective space travel. This shift is reflected in the flight profile as well. Unfortunately, due to lack of time, we could not prepare any flight profile and timeline slides for you guys to show and to discuss about. So please, we beg a pardon for that. So moving on, let's talk about the maneuvers. The IFT-3 aimed to test various functionalities along with reaching orbit. This included maneuvers like transferring propellant between tanks, demonstrating the payload bay door opening, and attempting to relight an engine in space. Now today on IFT-4, however, streamlines the flight, eliminating these additional maneuvers to focus solely on the landing procedures. Now, speaking of landing, let's move on to the landing and let's see the differences between the IFT-3 and the IFT-4. Both stages in IFT-3 were planned for a hard splashdown in the ocean. This was a simpler but more destructive landing method. While today IFT-4 aims for a softer landing for both stages. As details provided by Starship, it will undergo a landing burn and soft splashdown in the Gulf of Mexico with the Super Heavy booster and achieve a controlled entry of the Starship. And the splashdown of the Starship is targeted to be in the Indian Ocean. So the Super Heavy booster, as I said, will perform a powered descent and a soft splashdown in Gulf of Mexico, minimizing the damage. The Starship will also attempt a powered descent and a soft landing, a more precise and controlled method compared to the hard landing planned for IFT-3. Now talking about the Super Heavy, and let's see the contrast of difference between them for both the IFT-3 and IFT-4. Today, the Super Heavy booster in IFT-3 flew in its standard configuration. For IFT-4 today, engineers have incorporated a change to reduce mass during landing. The booster will jettison the hot stage ring, a structure located at the base of the vehicle that houses the engine plumbing. This reduces weight, allowing for a more efficient descent and a softer landing. And let's move on and see the difference between the Starship for both the IFT-3 and IFT-4. The biggest difference in Starship configuration lies in the roll control. IFT-3 did not have any additional thrusters specifically dedicated to controlling the vehicle's roll during flight, which we saw in the previous flight, that how insanely it was rolling over during its descent. This lack of dedicated control likely contributed to the uncontrolled re-entry experience in the IFT-3. Now, in today's flight, to address this issue, IFT-4 incorporates additional roll control thrusters on Starship. These thrusters will provide more precise control during descent and re-entry, hopefully preventing similar roll issues and ensuring a safer landing. So in essence, IFT-3 was a crucial test flight, pushing the performance envelope, and IFT-4 builds on that knowledge by focusing on reusability, a key factor for future missions. The changes implemented, particularly the focus on soft landings and improved roll control, demonstrate SpaceX's ongoing effort to refine the Starship system for reliable and cost-effective space travel. Now again, we will ask you for allowing us a couple of seconds to check whether the launch is on time or not. As of now, upon checking, it seems like it is on time and it's just only 1 minute for the webcast to begin. The timer on the top is not correct. For your information, we will be adjusting upon referring to when the stream starts, so please don't refer the timer up on the top right corner of the screen. So as the stream began, I don't know, I'm a little anxious for this event to happen, and that's why you would have been noticed how I was stammering and a little with a slurred speech. That slurred speech was for not sleeping again. But anyways, let's hope for this launch to happen in a good way. Would like to welcome Fairmaid for joining us. And what about this Tom guy and all this you guys are talking about? Welcome Pop Tripika for joining us back. Hope you are doing well. And also to Fairmaid, I didn't say it, you. Hope you are doing good as well. You are welcomed always, Fairmaid, to come along for the ride. But thanks for joining us. And as I was saying to Vlad, that maybe we won't be able to stream the docking of Starliner to the ISS, but let's see how much time it will be taking for the SpaceX. because already when this stream will be going on, I think so that the stream for the docking will be already being started for the Starliner 1, but docking itself is a little bit delayed. So let's see what happens. Upon that I will be doing things, but will try my best to do the to stream it. Yes, the music was so loud, all of a sudden it got by a mistake, Vlad. Sorry about that. I reduced it, and right now I'm not playing. Maybe this music will be giving some copyright claims. So let the stream to begin. I will be turning on the sound. And also would like to welcome everyone who joined us live today, right now on this stream. Hope you guys will be enjoying the stream, and you guys are also thrilled as we are.
We're looking at a live view of Starship as we await its 4th flight test from Starbase, Texas, also known as the Gateway to Mars. Thanks for tuning in. We're excited to be joining you once again from SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. As you can tell, the crowd is getting excited behind us. We're here in front of Mission Control Center. Now, we are targeting liftoff at 7:50 a.m. Central Time in just over 30 minutes from now. It's been roughly 2.5 months since our last Starship flight test, and the turnaround time between these tests just keeps getting shorter and shorter.
Today, we hope to surpass what we achieved in Flight Test 3 in March. Our primary goal is to get through the extreme heat of Starship reentry, which is no easy feat. As with all of our flight tests, our goal is to collect as much data as possible. Every flight gets us another step closer to a fully operational Starship. Starship is the most powerful vehicle ever developed and the first design of a rocket that is capable of making life multiplanetary.
Starship will allow us to land humans on the moon again after more than half a century, fly the heaviest payloads ever flown, and ultimately fly humans further into space than ever before. Getting there will require us to fly frequently, which is why we're producing so fast. We already have hardware built and are preparing for our next several flights.
But the most important thing about Starship is that it's designed to be fully and rapidly reusable, and of course, reliable. We've been designing from day one to realize a vision of having an entire city of people on Mars, something we know will take launching millions of pounds of cargo and equipment into space spread across thousands of launches.
The faster we can learn now, the faster we can improve and evolve Starship to achieve this vision. And that brings us to today's flight test, the 4th of many that will get us one step closer to Mars. But before we dive into the details of today's test, let's do a quick rewind and talk about our last integrated flight test, Flight 3. On March 14th, Starship successfully lifted off at 8:25 a.m. Central Time from Starbase, Texas. It cleared the launch tower and went on to accomplish several major milestones and firsts. All 33 Raptor engines on the Super Heavy booster started up successfully and completed a full duration 2-minute and 41-second ascent burn.
Then we saw our second ever hot stage separation, powering down all but 3 of Super Heavy's Raptor engines and then igniting the ship's 6 Raptors to create separation. Next, Super Heavy completed its flip maneuver and ignited the 13 center engines for the boost back burn to send it towards its splashdown point in the Gulf of Mexico. All 13 engines ran successfully until 6 engines began shutting down, triggering an early end to the boost back.
After descent, we attempted the first ever Super Heavy landing burn, which uses the same 13 center engines that we used on boostback. Since 6 of those experienced the early shutdown in the boost back burn, we attempted the landing burn with the remaining 7 Raptors, and 2 of those 7 reached main stage ignition. In the end, contact was lost with the booster at approximately 462 meters in altitude over the Gulf of Mexico, just under 7 minutes into the mission.
Post-flight data review showed that the early boost back burn shutoff was most likely caused by filter blockage where oxygen is supplied to the engines. We saw a similar issue on Flight 2 and had added hardware to mitigate it, which worked to get us to our first ever landing burn attempt.
Now for today's flight, we upgraded those filters further and made some additional hardware and software changes to increase our chances of igniting all 13 engines for the landing burn. Now turning back to the Flight 3 ship, we saw all 6 Raptor engines start successfully and powered the vehicle to space, marking the first time we completed its full ascent burn.
While coasting, we completed some additional objectives, including the opening and closing of the payload door. We also transferred propellant between tanks inside the ship, which is a key test as we prepare for full ship-to-ship prop transfers in the future. Once we were into our coast, though, the ship gradually lost the ability to control its attitude or orientation, which is done with smaller thrusters around the spacecraft.
As a result, the vehicle experienced some unplanned rolling. It still flew on the planned trajectory, but losing attitude control triggered the flight computer to skip a planned relight of a single Raptor engine while on orbit. And then the moment that we all had been looking forward to for so long, as you can see here, the ship's re-entry from space. This was the first time that we were able to get real live flight data on things like heating and vehicle control during hypersonic re-entry, of which we will talk more about later.
Not having attitude control meant both protected and unprotected areas saw heating much higher than anticipated. But we were able to get live, high-definition views and real-time data during entry thanks to Starlink terminals on the ship, which itself was a widely successful test. This gave us confidence that we'll continue to get unparalleled insight into the ship's re-entry in order to rapidly improve.
And as they say, all good things must come to an end. And for Flight 3, this occurred when contact with the ship was lost at approximately 65 kilometers in altitude, roughly 50 minutes into the mission. After reviewing data from the flight, we found the most likely cause of the unplanned rolling seen during the ship coast phase and re-entry phase was blockage of valves that help control the smaller attitude control thrusters.
We upgraded these to make them more resilient and added some additional thrusters for redundancy. Overall, we learned a tremendous amount from that last flight, and capping it off with those re-entry views was truly an exciting end to the mission.
Incredible.
So back to today's test. Today's mission profile is similar to Flight 3, but we have new test objectives, the first of which is getting through the extreme heat of re-entry. About 27 minutes from now, Super Heavy will ignite its 33 Raptor engines and lift off from Starbase. A little more than 2.5 minutes into flight, the Super Heavy booster will separate from the ship in a hot stage separation, meaning that it'll light its engines while still attached to a partially lit booster. The booster will perform a flip maneuver, followed by a boost back burn. About 2 seconds after that burn ends, we'll jettison the booster's hot stage. As it heads back to Earth, the booster will attempt a landing burn before splashing down into the Gulf.
Meanwhile, the ship's engines will remain lit for just under 6 minutes during its ascent before shutting down for the coast phase. The ship will coast for about 40 minutes or so, reaching a peak altitude of 214 kilometers. And after its coast phase, the ship will attempt a controlled re-entry, including a flip maneuver and a landing burn, before splashing down in the Indian Ocean. Now, we say attempting because, again, this is a test, and nothing is guaranteed. As we mentioned earlier, the booster and the ship have to contend with some extreme conditions on re-entry.
For this flight test, we do not plan to recover any hardware from the booster or the ship. With the exception of Falcon, this is no different than what happens to most rockets flying today that are expended or fall into the ocean after completing their mission. Eventually, we will land and recover Starship boosters and ships, as we do today with Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy boosters. And in fact, we've landed 316 Falcon boosters to date.
Even though recovery is not planned, the telemetry and data we receive all the way to the end is what we're looking for, which will help us continue to build a rapidly reusable Starship for the future. In other words, the payload for this mission is data. It's also worth mentioning that the hot stage jettison is an off-nominal procedure that we're using as a temporary way to reduce the weight of the vehicle for its water landing today.
Yeah, exactly. Future designs give Super Heavy boosters a lighter weight integrated hot stage intended for full reusability, which will mitigate the need to jettison the hot stage. Okay, so now that we have a handle on today's flight test, let's check in with Dan. Dan, how's it going?
Hey Jesse, and welcome everybody back to Starbase for yet another Starship launch. I'm coming to you live from the Raptor's Nest behind the Mega Bay. I'm here with our Pad Red team and some of our flight controllers this morning. Everything has been going really smooth. We did have the red team going a little bit earlier to fix a ground side issue, but that was taken care of. That's why we slid a little bit later into our window. But as of right now, we are on track for liftoff at 7:50 a.m. Central Time. That's 12:50 UTC. As you can see, we are actively loading propellant onto Starship and Super Heavy. Those frost lines are ticking up as we load liquid methane, that's our fuel, liquid oxygen, that's our oxidizer, onto both vehicles. They're cryogenic, so they're subcooled to several hundred degrees below zero. Since Flight 3, we've made a few more upgrades, helping to bring Prop Farm 2.0 online. That's just going to help us to continue to shorten the amount of prop load time that we're going to need. We're also going to be using it for Launch Tower number 2, which is going to be coming to Starbase real soon. The faster we go, the less prop we're going to lose to boil off, and the better we can ensure things like temperatures are in the right range for Raptor startup. Now, those first two flights took about 90 minutes to load prop on board. That third, we knocked it all the way down to just 51 minutes. We're aiming for about 46 minutes of prop load time for today's op, eventually hoping to get that down all the way to 40, which for some context, that's just 5 minutes more than we take to load Falcon 9, but we're doing it with 10 times the amount. So this morning, ship prop load started at T-minus 50 minutes, booster at T-minus 43 minutes. We're going to pause the ship main tank prop load in just a couple of minutes to do the header tanks, which are going to do that attempted ship landing burn. We expect the ship to close out all of its prop at about 3 minutes and 20 seconds before liftoff, and then booster at about 2:50. Now, our final countdown sequence is going to look very familiar. It's going to be the exact same as it was on flights 2 and 3. So we'll light those engines, and then about 4 seconds later, we will actually see it lift off. But I mean, right now, we are just under 23 minutes away from launch. We're not working any issues either with the vehicle, the range. Weather is 95% go, so not dealing with any winds or weather issues today. If we do have to scrub, our next attempt would probably be about 48 hours from now. It's all going to be driven by commodities and just how far we get into the count. But everything looking good for liftoff just about 22 and a half minutes from now. I'll check back in with you guys in a few minutes, and I'll send it back over to Kate and Jesse.
Excellent. Thanks, Dan. Flight tests like today are the fastest possible route for us to dramatically improve Starship's capabilities. The Starship flying today has already seen a number of changes based on what we learned from Flight Test 3 in March, which was only 2.5 months ago. Development moves really fast here at SpaceX. Let's take a closer look at the iteration of the vehicle flying today. Starship is comprised of two elements, the ship, which has 6 Raptor engines, and the Super Heavy booster, which has 33 Raptor engines.
The current iteration of Starship is essentially an experimental vehicle flying for development. Starship 2 will be capable of carrying more than 100 tons to orbit, and Starship 3 will be able to handle more than 200 tons to orbit. Compared to Saturn V, the rocket that first took astronauts to the moon, Starship has more than twice the thrust. And with a few planned upgrades, Starship will have 3 times the thrust of Saturn V, plus the added benefit of full reusability. The amount of mass that we're able to launch per rocket is crucial to creating a self-sustaining city on Mars.
Now, to get a sense of how big Starship is, let's start with the average-sized human, which is about 2 meters high. And towering over our average human is the length of the Millennium Falcon, which comes in at 35 meters. Our Falcon 9 rocket with the payload fairing attached is double the size of the Millennium Falcon at 70 meters, and nearly twice the size of that is the fully integrated Starship at 121 meters tall. The ship is about 50 meters tall, and the Super Heavy booster alone stands 71 meters. Eventually, the ship and booster will get even taller.
Starship's first stage has a diameter roughly 2.5 times that of Falcon 9, and with 33 much larger Raptor engines, as you see there. I love this view because we don't have this view on our Falcon missions. This is looking up under the Super Heavy booster. Now, moving up the rocket, the ship features 6 Raptors, 3 sea-level engines, and 3 vacuum engines, which, as the name suggests, are optimized to operate in the vacuum of space. And Starship is designed for vertical takeoff and landing on any hard surface. The ship is also outfitted with 4 flaps to help aerodynamically control the vehicle's attitude during atmospheric flight and enable a precise landing.
And in between the first and second stages is our hot stage, our newest separation technique, which we saw in action during flight tests 2 and 3. The body of Starship is wrapped in a heat shield made up of 18,000 hexagonal ceramic tiles designed to insulate the vehicle during atmospheric entry, where temperatures can be as high as 2,600 degrees Fahrenheit or over 1,400 degrees Celsius. Speaking of those heat shield tiles, re-entry was a pretty exciting first for our team, and Starlink allowed us to gather critical data about this stage of flight.
Reusability significantly reduces the cost of space travel, and it's the key to making humans a multi-planet species. Starship is designed for rapid reusability, which means the booster and the ship need to re-enter Earth's atmosphere and land back precisely at the launch site.
With each flight test, we gather more and more data to help hone Starship's re-entry capabilities. The more information we have from each flight, the quicker Starship development can proceed. One way to gather more information is to improve communication throughout the flight, including re-entry, where historically there has been a communications blackout.
To do this, we equipped Starship with Starlink terminals to expand its communication capabilities. The Starlink terminals are those 4 black squares that you see there on top of the ship. Starlink is the world's largest constellation of highly advanced satellites operating in a low orbit around the Earth, providing high-speed internet on Earth and now in space.
Starship is designed to have a large surface area to create considerable drag during re-entry. Traveling at about 27,000 kilometers per hour or almost 17,000 miles per hour, Starship compresses the air in front of it, causing the temperature of the air to rise and ionize, turning it into plasma. This plasma layer interferes with communications by absorbing and reflecting radio waves, leading to the communications blackout we've seen historically with spacecraft during atmospheric reentry. With Starship, most of that plasma is built up around the front and sides of the vehicle, leaving an opening downstream where we're able to point our Starlink terminals. And with Starlink also operating at a higher frequency than traditional space-based communications, we're able to power through any residual plasma to provide real-time video and data at high speeds back to the ground.
Super cool. We actually got to see this in action on Starship's last test, Flight 3, which had the first ever live HD video of a spaceship re-entering the atmosphere. SpaceX engineers were able to gather data on the performance of Starship as it re-entered the atmosphere and watched the heat shield in action. Now, the physics of re-entry are extremely hard to replicate perfectly on the ground, so access to this data is an invaluable tool for rapid iteration. In fact, one cool observation from that Flight 3 was seeing how shock waves form at different parts of the vehicle and how they interact to put pressure on the ship, especially the flaps. This is really valuable for Starship since no spacecraft has ever flown with 4 movable flaps like what we use for aerodynamic control. Starship's greatest strength will be rapid and reliable reusability, and Starlink has become a critical tool to make that a reality.
Over the next few flights, we'll continue to improve the Starlink performance on Starship, eventually enabling more views and enabling more data to be transmitted in real time. And we'll keep experimenting during entry. You might have noticed a few tiles missing or looking different near the bottom of Starship. We intentionally placed 1 thin tile and removed 2 tiles completely. In their place, we now have sensors to see how hot things get without the tiles in those locations, while also testing some backup thermal protection options. Ideally, we expect Starship's reentry to improve on each flight, thanks in part to this wealth of new data. But if getting to space is hard, returning from space is even harder.
That's right. No one has ever succeeded in creating a fully and rapidly reusable heat shield. So we could see some spectacular failures before we get this right. But with communications improving on each flight, we will continue to gather more and more data to inform our development. We're now about 15 and a half minutes until our next liftoff.
Did we saw and heard about missing
Look at some of the technology we have in development.
tiles on that Starship? Again, they will be suffering same problem if it will be like that.
Next year, we plan to demonstrate ship-to-ship propellant transfer, which will be important for our upcoming moon missions. Today, we're actively testing a lot of hardware that will make exploring the moon possible. One recent series of tests brought together the key pieces we'll see when landing back on the moon: Starship, spacesuits, and astronauts.
Together with Axiom and NASA, our teams put 2 astronauts in pressurized Axiom spacesuits and practiced the first steps of going to the lunar surface. The team used test builds of a Starship airlock, as you see there, and elevator to gather data on how well future Artemis astronauts will be able to move around once fully suited. Tests like this are incredibly helpful for engineers designing.
I guess this events happened yesterday, if I'm not wrong.
This photo, and Doug Wheelock, who's on the left. You can see them in action during this elevator test.
SpaceX will perform one uncrewed demonstration flight before NASA's Artemis 3 mission, which will be the first human surface expedition since 1972. After those first expeditions, we'll be ready to fly more people along with everything it takes to build a moon base. In many ways, Artemis feels like an extension of the human spaceflight work SpaceX and NASA have been partnering on for some time now. In fact, we just celebrated the anniversary of the Demo 2 mission.
That's right.
Well, until these beautiful girls are talking about old things, let me just, as a countdown is only 13 minutes to the launch, so let me just again recap the difference what we will be seeing today, that is between the IFT-3 and IFT-4. The primary goal, talking about the primary goals, the IFT-3 was focused on pushing the boundaries of the Starship system. Its objective was to achieve orbital velocity, a crucial step for future space mission. In contrast, today IFT-4 will prioritize reusability, a critical factor for cost effectiveness for the space travel. This shift is reflected in the flight profile as well. Next, we are having differences in the maneuvers, that IFT-3 was aimed to test various functionalities along with reaching orbit. This included maneuvers like transferring propellant between tanks, demonstrating the payload bay door opening, and attempting to relight an engine in space. While today on IFT-4, however, it is streamlining the flight, eliminating these additional maneuvers to focus solely on the landing procedures. Moving on the landing differences, both stages in IFT-3 were planned for a hard splashdown in the ocean. This was a simpler but more destructive landing method, but today we will be seeing in IFT-4, which will be aiming for a softer landing for both stages. The Super Heavy booster will perform a powered descent and a soft splashdown in the Gulf of Mexico, minimizing the damages, while Starship will also attempt a powered descent and a soft landing, a more precise and controlled method compared to hard landing, which we saw in IFT-3. Next, speaking of the difference, we will be monitoring and witnessing in Super Heavy. The Super Heavy booster in IFT-3 flew in its standard configuration, but for today IFT-4 engineers have incorporated a change to reduce mass during landing. The booster will jettison the hot stage ring, a structure located at the base of the vehicle that houses the engine plumbing, which will reduce weight, allowing for a more efficient descent for a softer landing. And speaking lastly for the Starship, the biggest difference in the Starship configuration lies in the roll control. As you heard also in the stream, that IFT-3 did not have had any additional thrusters specifically dedicated to controlling the vehicle's roll during the flight. This lack of dedicated control likely contributed to the uncontrolled re-entry experience in the IFT-3. To address this issue, IFT-4 will incorporate additional roll control thrusters on Starship. These thrusters will provide more precise control during descent and re-entry, hopefully preventing similar roll issues and ensuring a safer landing. Now let's head back to the stream.
Everyone getting super pumped for our fourth flight test. Now, as a reminder on that note, today is just a test, the fourth of many future flight tests of Starship before it becomes fully operational. So whatever the outcome and however far we get, we can promise excitement. This rapid, iterative development approach has been the basis for all of SpaceX's major innovative advancements, including Falcon, Dragon, and Starlink.
Today, we've successfully landed Falcon 9 boosters 316 times, changing humanity's understanding of what's possible when it comes to rocket reusability. And even though we are not recovering the booster or ship today, test flights like these provide critical data through every phase of flight, which will get us closer and closer to full reusability, and we have a lot more tests planned for this year. When we start recovering Starship boosters, we'll want them to return to the launch site for a quicker turnaround, which you can see in this animation on your screen. And that's when the tower reveals its dual purpose. After launch, the arms or chopsticks on the tower will help guide the booster into position to ensure a precision landing.
And our goal for the near future is to have 4 launch towers, 2 in Cape Canaveral in Florida, and they will look very similar to the ones that you see here in this animation. As we know, we find that our renderings tend to end up looking really similar to real life. So while this is a rendering, we do know we can look forward to this in the future. Like I said, we're going to have 2 at Cape Canaveral in Florida and 2 located at Starbase. Starbase will continue to be used for flight tests, and the towers at the Cape will come online as we prepare to fly operational Starship missions. In fact, we recently upgraded the actuators in the chopsticks, which are responsible for swinging those arms in for a catch. And we'll be testing an operational step on this flight by moving the chopsticks to the catch position immediately after Starship flies away.
That's going to be really incredible to see. As we mentioned, we have a lot more tests planned for this year, so we need a lot more hardware. Today we have ships and Super Heavy boosters built and either ready to launch or in testing for the next several flights, with more coming off of the production line as SpaceX's Star Factory continues to grow. The latest phase of the factory currently under construction will come online this summer, giving us several 100,000 more square feet of space.
Yeah, when you step into this factory, it is truly inspirational. My heart jumps out of my chest every time I'm there. Now, this will enable us to increase our production rate significantly as we build toward our long-term goal of producing 1 ship per day. And coming off the production line soon, Starship version 2. Now, with all that being said, let's check back in with Dan for the latest as we head into the terminal count.
Hey, thanks, Kate. Everything still looks great. We're getting ready to launch. We are just under 6.5 minutes away. You can see when we throw up the graphics for prop load that we're almost closed out ship, more than 90% full. Those header tanks are done. And then the boosters coming up on 90% real soon. So we're going to see those close out in the next couple of minutes. Ship's going to end at about 3 minutes and 20 seconds. It'll be fully loaded. And then booster at about 2 minutes and 50 seconds. After all the props loaded on, we go through a lot of steps to safe ground systems. You're doing things called pushbacks, where you're just clearing all of those lines on the ground of propellant before we lift off. But once we're done, we're going to have 10 million pounds of liquid propellant on board Starship to help power the most powerful vehicle ever designed. If we do hold, we have a built-in hold gate at T-minus 40 seconds. We can hold there for about 30 minutes or so today. If we need to wait for final pressure checks or for if we have anything on the range, anything like that. Did just get that the range is green, so we are coming up 5 minutes and 20 seconds away. We are not planning to hold at T-minus 40 unless we trip some kind of hold alarm, something like that. So we could blow right through that gate and go right to launch. Don't be shocked if we hold at T40 though, and if we do, we can hold for a couple of minutes and then keep going. Our window is open all the way until 9 a.m. today.
Now, once we pass through T-minus 40 seconds, a number of events will occur in rapid succession. The ground spin and ignition systems will come up to flight pressure, and the ship will go to internal power.
Now, after that, the quick disconnect arm lockout is removed in preparation for retraction shortly after T0. Gas lines connected to the booster and ship are vented down, and once we pass T-minus 40 seconds, we still have the ability to recycle the count under certain conditions back to T-minus 40 seconds and hold there to assess what happened and if we can proceed again to T0.
However, once the water for the deflector system begins flowing at T-minus 10 seconds, any issue after that would be an automatic scrub for the day, as teams would need to refill the deflector's water tanks, as well as the lock storage tanks at the tank farm before making another attempt. So, as Dan mentioned earlier, we are not planning to hold at the optional T-minus 40 second mark. That moment basically is what would allow teams to wait for final checkouts or assess prop levels or avionics, vehicle pressurization, the range, the weather. Weather is 95% go, as you can see from these incredible drone views that we have and pad cams. It is a beautiful day. Of course, we have some clouds billowing from the locks there.
Yeah, and again, a reminder that the payload for this mission is data, and our primary goal is to get ship through the extreme heat of reentry today. We're very excited to see that. We did get very close on Flight 3, so I'm excited to see how these iterations that we've made to the vehicle will help improve our chances of success today.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, just as a reminder for the booster, now we are not attempting to recover any hardware today, both either on ship or booster. For the booster, we will be attempting to perform a landing burn to have a soft splashdown in the Gulf of Mexico. We made some improvements from our Flight 3 learnings, so hopefully that will work and we'll see a successful soft splashdown. For the ship, we're hoping to demonstrate controlled re-entry, including a flip maneuver and landing burn, and that will be followed by splashdown in the Indian Ocean. That is the same target as we had on Flight 3, so everything should look pretty similar in that regard. And we just heard the call out there that all prop load is closed out, so at this point, there is like 10 million pounds of propellant on board Starship, which is incredible.
This is getting very exciting. We are just about 2 minutes away from T0.
It's just T-minus 2 minutes to go.
And as Jesse just said, we are under 2 minutes away. So prop load is complete. All the fill drain lines into ship and booster have closed. Right now we're doing the pushback, so clearing out all those ground lines of propellant, and that'll be completed over the next couple of seconds. We're coming up on that T-minus 40 mark. Again, not planning to hold. If we do, or if we get a hold after we pass it, we can snap back to that T-minus 40, and then we can stay there for about 30 minutes or so if any other issues crop up. Once we pass T-minus 40, a lot of things happen, both on the vehicle and the ground. It's running a lot of its own self-checkouts, venting different tanks and pressure lines throughout the vehicle. We essentially built that 40 seconds, as that's about how much time it takes for the vehicle to take all of those actions, which is why we hold there. But all of that happens automated. You do a final checkout.
T-minus 1 minute to go.
Vector control, how we're going to steer. And then we see liftoff. So we're under a minute away. "45 seconds and counting."
Good event, game it.
All right, now as we close in, we are past the 40-second mark. So let's listen in.
Flight Director is
Ty
about to launch.
Huntington's going to take us through one more time for a Starship liftoff.
T-minus 15. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. We have liftoff.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
And we have liftoff. Starship has cleared the tower.
The rumbles are still building here in the Raptor's nest. We're seeing 32 out of 33 engines lit on the Super Heavy right now. Coming up shortly is going to be max Q, that maximum aerodynamic pressure as we go uphill on the vehicle.
Max Q.
All right, we just passed through max Q, so we're going to continue on up. We still have about a minute and 30 seconds until we get to stage separation.
We passed through
Starship
max
now
Q.
flying faster than the speed of sound.
The maximum aerodynamic pressure on any vehicle while ascending through Earth's atmosphere. Also, we did got a call out for
You got some ground trackers in your top camera there. You're looking down.
vehicle being supersonic. So Starship did reach Mach 1 and is faster than the speed of sound right now.
Looks as Starship heads uphill. Once we get the hot staging, a lot of things happen all at once simultaneously. We're going to light the engines on the ship, starting with the RVACs first, and then the 3 center sea level engines. Before we're separated, all of that exhaust gets plumed out the side of the hot stage, and then the ship will separate itself. All but the 3 center engines on the booster are going to shut down, so the booster never stops its thrust while we go through this hot stage maneuver. After that, the booster is going to do its flip, start heading back, and then the ship will be on its own power on its way to space. So that should be coming up in just about 30 seconds from now. As of right now, still looking in like 32 out of 33 Raptors lit on the booster. And we'll start to see those stagger down. They're going to turn off in banks, so you'll see the lights on the bottom left screen of the engines that are active start to turn off in different groups, and you'll see those 3 center ones lit.
I guess one Raptor engine is turned off. Okay, now they turned off all of them.
Ship ignition.
Now we got the
Stage separation confirmed.
second stage ignition.
Start up.
Stage separation successful.
Hot stage confirmed. Ship under its own power. Booster boosting back. Looks like all 13 are lit. Kate, we got a booster on the way back to the Gulf and a ship on the way to space.
Acquisition signal stems.
Ship chamber pressures are nominal.
Good call outs. We got
All right, the first
ship
stage
chamber
currently
pressure
performing
is nominal, and even the power and telemetry for the ship is nominal.
back toward the coast, taking it to a landing in the waters of the Gulf of Mexico. As you can see on your screen in the bottom left-hand corner, we were only using the 13 center engines from here on.
Boost back burn shut down.
Heard confirmation there of good boost back burn shutdown.
Stage 2 tank pressures are nominal.
We did had a boost back burn being completed.
This is our view of the jettisoned hot stage. As we mentioned, this is a temporary fix to help reduce the weight of the booster. So we have the super heavy booster. Future iterations will have a lighter weight integrated hot stage structure that won't need to be jettisoned. Now, after we jettison that hot stage, the booster will begin to attempt its water landing in the Gulf. In the meantime, the ship will coast for about 40 minutes or so up to an altitude of 214 kilometers. And after its coast phase, it will attempt a controlled reentry, including a flip maneuver and a landing burn, just before splashing down in the Indian Ocean. But as a reminder, we are not attempting...
Trajectory nominal.
Good news there, trajectory is looking good for the ship, which is on the right-hand side of your screen.
We did got a good call out for the trajectory. Also, we did saw the booster doing the jettison of the hot stage ring, a structure located at the base of the vehicle that houses the engine plumbing. This will reduce the weight, allowing for a more efficient descent for a softer landing.
These views have been looking incredible. Super Heavy has been performing beautifully today. And you can hear the crowd is very excited about it. As a reminder, for Booster, the primary goal today is to do a landing burn and a splashdown in the water. And we are just about 30 seconds away from that landing burn expecting to begin. And an incredible view from the forward portion of the booster. This is basically on top of the Super Heavy booster where we have jettisoned that hot stage. So now we can see this incredible view of Earth as it's making its way back down to the Gulf of Mexico. Right now, the booster is using the 4 hypersonic grid fins to guide itself through atmospheric re-entry. And we are expecting that landing burn here. And we will be igniting 13 engines, and this is a great view. On your left-hand side is 3 views from the booster, and your right-hand side a view from the ship. And you can see those grid fins on your left-hand screen rotating and turning to guide the booster, and there's that landing burn. That landing burn just begun, and you can see the water below. And we have splashdown. What an incredible sight! Congratulations to the SpaceX team!
We did
Ship has entered terminal, guys.
saw the landing burn to happen, and it did got a perfect soft landing.
Seeing it just tip over into the water before losing that footage. Now the next milestone is coming up in about under a minute. The ship is going to shut off its Raptor engines,
Ship engine cut off.
which we see right there. As we mentioned before, today's test flight is not an orbital flight, but rather one that demonstrates the Starship's orbital capability. So right now, we are under power with just the 3 center Raptor engines. Expecting those, and just there we can see that those have also successfully cut off.
Ship FDS is saved.
What an incredible...
Nominal orbit insertion.
Oh, there's great news there. The call out we were hoping to hear. Amazing views once again from Starship. We have our second Starship in space. These live views being brought to us by Starlink, which is on board the ship.
The ship's FTS has been saved and is in a nominal orbit. These are good callouts which we got.
I'm like still jumping up
And during the
this whole building was going absolutely
and during the
insane.
descent of the first stage, which you saw was the grid fins steering the first stage, or you can say the heavy booster, is just similar to the way it happens for the Falcon 9.
And I feel like every single time we do one of these, we're seeing something wildly new. We got to see the hot stage jettison and the booster in the water. But just to recap real quick over everything that's happened. So we lifted off at 7:50 a.m. only 9 minutes ago. How has it only been 9 minutes? 7:50 a.m. Central at 12:50 UTC. We saw 32 of the 33 Raptor engines on Super Heavy make the ascent. We had successful cutoff, successful hot staging. All 6 engines on the ship powered it all the way into a nominal orbital trajectory. And we've already been getting some live views from the ship on board. After that, the booster was able to do its boost back burn. Oh, this looks like we're actually getting some views from the ground still, potentially from Florida, of the ship as it's up there. That's a view from some of our tracking cameras on the ground in Florida. But the ship, we just heard successful orbital insertion, so it's right where it needs to be and is now going to continue on its way to coast until it comes to reentry. But I mean, the booster, successful boost back burn, jettison the hot stage, and then a landing burn. It looked like we saw 12 of the 13 engines light up, and then that first ever soft splashdown in the water. So a whole lot still to come. Ship now on its way to its primary objective of entry. That's going to be coming up in just under 40 minutes from now. So a lot still to come, but wow, what a 9 minutes to start this mission off. So can't wait to see what entry is going to show us, but that launch was incredible. Back over to you, Jesse and Kate.
Wow. I am still trying to catch my breath here. That was some incredible views that we have never seen before. It has been nonstop since liftoff, and with the booster having completed its job for the day, we're going to take a short break for about the next 28 minutes, and we'll return while we're going to take a break while the ship is continuing to coast before re-entry.
Exactly. As with Flight 3, Starlink may enable us to talk with the ship through re-entry with no communication blackout. We are still testing Starlink during this phase of flight, so of course nothing is certain. However, if we do have views, we will be sure to bring those to you live. Views such as the one, that we had. Well, of course, because I said it went away. So we will try to bring those to you live.
Exactly. Views or no views, we'll see you back here at T plus 40 minutes for coverage of Starship's re-entry, flip maneuver, landing burn, and splashdown.
As of now, referring to Simon, we don't have any information regarding the Starship Integrated Flight 5. So as of now on the stream, we are awaiting for the acquisition of signal, and there are being some copyrighted musics playing on. So for that, I had to turn off the volume down there. But I'm keeping an ear to it. Whenever any necessary things will be happening, I will be switching on the volume back again. So far today, the launch went smooth. we did had a booster splashdown. That's a soft splashdown, soft landing splashdown, as promised and committed by SpaceX. So as of now, half of the job is done. Now we are awaiting for the splashdown, that is soft landing of ship. And right now it's in a coast phase. The ship is in a coast phase, and SpaceX team is awaiting for acquisition of signal. Upon having acquisition of signal, we will be getting some good nice views, and also we do expect, like the last time, we will be getting some awesome views during the re-entry. Prior to today's integrated flight test, during the last one, that is the integrated flight test 3, we did saw the hard splashdown of the super heavy booster back in Gulf of Mexico. But today we did got a very nice, and really it was quite amazing view while it did performed a soft landing, a splashdown in the Gulf of Mexico for the super heavy booster. And as of now, we are waiting for the soft landing and the splashdown of Starship in the Indian Ocean. And just a quick reminder that today's flight pad does not require a deorbit burn for re-entry, which will be maximizing public safety while still providing the opportunity to meet the primary objectives of a controlled Starship re-entry. although it will take some more test flights to happen before the thing Fairmade you are mentioning, that to see the booster landing back to the chopsticks. But yes, really, as of now, as we are seeing just in an animation, it feels so good. But when we will be really see it happening in front of our eyes, it will be really awesome. But as of now, it will be taking, I think, more than at least 3 test flights to happen. After that, they will be achieving that. But who knows, SpaceX is really amazing people by doing their fast work, so maybe it can happen earlier also. Yes, I do heard it about that. It is called as chopsticks, kind of. I don't know, Vlad, that it is said officially or not, but you can search on internet that it is, and I did heard as that that's what I said, that it is said as chopsticks and it is attached to Mechazilla or I don't know how to pronounce it, Mechazilla, that the launch tower from which starships are launching. So it do have the, and during this stacking and destacking you will see those arms which are grabbing the ship and putting the ship over the booster. I guess those are named as chopsticks only, and they will be only in future will be holding the starship back while they will be landing back on the platform. And referring to Fairmade, thinking so, always being positive, optimistic and positive, I'm thinking so. I don't know about others because already one milestones they did achieve, so it's of no wonder maybe they can do so for this ship also.
4th flight test. It has been an exciting day so far. We had an on-time liftoff of 7:50 a.m. Central Time, followed by successful hot staging, stage separation, jettisoning of the hot stage structure, an epic super heavy booster landing, water landing in the Gulf of Mexico, the first successful return of the super heavy booster. So that was incredible to see. And right now, the ship is in space. As you can see here by this view, we're looking at one of the flaps of Starship, one of 4. You can actually see a close-up side detail of some of those hexagonal heat shield tiles. Now, coming up around T plus 49 minutes, the ship will re-enter the Earth's atmosphere. As a reminder, the primary goal of today's flight test is for a ship to make it through the extreme heat of re-entry. This is typically a portion of flight where we don't have communications with the spacecraft because it's re-entering at or around orbital velocity, which is about 8 kilometers per second or roughly 5 miles per second. At those speeds, the spacecraft moving through the atmosphere results in friction and creates a plasma field around the vehicle. That blanket of plasma distorts, as you can see, that plasma blanket, which you can kind of see here, distorts communication frequencies, so we're left with a brief blackout in communication.
Yeah, that's right, Kate. And Starlink's what's really allowing us to capture as much data as possible, especially through this reentry. Updated animation landing burn. I hope we get to see it for real today. But these live views that we're getting now and we're going to continue to get are through Starlink. That's going to allow us to get as much data as possible, which we've said it before, we're going to say it 9,000 times. The data is the payload on these flights. So as much as we can learn, that's just going to pay dividends on all of our future flights and help us get Starship to an operational phase. Re-entry, obviously a really critical phase of the flight, and it's the one that we're now most focused on cracking to get us closer to that full reusability. Starlink is going to be able to send us data back all the way through re-entry. We've done some additional testing, and we're expecting to be able to get data from Starlink thanks to its high frequency and kind of the orientation and everything of Starship all the way through re-entry. And then got a new view here. We have 2 external views. We had this one on flight 3. We've got 2 for this one. And we're going to continue adding views as we continue to evolve Starship. Again, this is an experimental vehicle. Believe me, I want as many camera views as you all do. So huge shout out to the AVI and the software teams and everybody that's been working with us. We're getting more cameras on Starship. Not just because it looks cool, but this provides an incredible insight into re-entry, which is, historically a really tough window to look through. The physics of re-entry are insanely intense. One of my favorite NASA astronauts, Victor Glover, recently described it as with the forces and the flows and the temperatures, it's like pointing at a raging river in one spot and saying, tell me exactly what's happening right there. And that's what a ship is experiencing as it goes through, as it's moving through the atmosphere at, more than 5 miles a second and heating up to thousands of degrees. So just having visual representation, just being able to see what's happening is incredibly valuable. So these views are going to be through Starlink. We've got this one. This is in one of the forward flaps looking back. So if you see it rotating around, that's because, again, it's embedded in one of those forward flaps. So as we get through and we start to build up density in the atmosphere, this view is going to move around as the flap does. And then the other one we had a little bit earlier is looking at one of the other forward flaps on the other side. Eventually we're going to keep adding more cameras to Starship, get a couple of different views from the outside of all the different areas, and then also eventually to be able to see payloads once they're deployed. So a lot more exciting stuff coming up in the future. But right now we're getting closer to re-entry. We're going to be moving at hypersonic speeds of more than 5 times the speed of sound. We're going to see that plasma start to build. So, Kate, Jesse, excitement coming up.
Yeah, as you can see with that view on your screen, again, high def brought to us by Starlink. We can see the plasma beginning to build as the ship is getting closer to the Earth's atmosphere. Now, let's talk a little bit about how Starship will survive reentry, hopefully, and control itself.
Exactly. We've been talking about this entire flight test. There's 18,000 hexagonal ceramic tiles surrounding the bottom portion or the Earth-facing side of the ship.
Through 100 kilometers altitude, good altitude for entry.
Great call outs there. Now, during atmospheric reentry, the vehicle is going to see temperatures as high as 2,600 degrees Fahrenheit or over 1,400 degrees Celsius. So those tiles are there to help protect the vehicle from this extreme heat.
Yeah, and the flaps will help control it. Now, one noticeable difference I see immediately, those flaps are not moving as much as they were on Flight 3. So that is a great sign, right? We had unplanned loss of roll control on Flight 3, so we added some additional thrusters, and we can see that they're working well, and we have a much more stable view. So those flaps, there's 4 of them, 2 at the top and 2 at the bottom. They're made out of stainless steel, and yeah, they help steer the ship, which, as we can see, the plasma continuing to build. Now, if the ship survives reentry, it will have to perform a flip maneuver as well as a landing burn. We saw this demonstrated in a couple of high-altitude flight tests back in like 2020, 2021. Similarly,
temperatures increasing on the nose within expected ranges.
Great news there. It sounds like the temperatures that we are getting during this point, which again, we usually don't get during spaceflight because of this plasma. We're getting this live. This is a great news. So similarly to, for example, the serial number 10 test that we saw a couple years ago, we're hoping to duplicate that again today. Hopefully we will see it live. And basically the 3 center engines of the ship will reignite and gimbal or point to help flip the ship until those engines are pointing down so that it can land vertically using Raptor's thrust.
And as you can see, even from the beginning of the program, we've designed Starship to land on Mars where there are no runways or other humans to help out. We also want rapid reusability, so we're doing...
The vehicle is passing through 85 kilometers altitude. The flaps have control of the vehicle.
Great news. Flaps have control of the vehicle. That's exactly what we want to hear for this flight test.
Yeah.
Again, we are going to be doing a propulsive landing instead of a more traditional means like parachutes. And we are expecting re-entry to begin here in just about a minute. Re-entry, an awesome view that we have here.
Starship remains on a good entry trajectory.
This is the same view that we had when we first returned from the coast phase. Again, this is looking at the side of one of the flaps. It's incredible that literally at the bottom of this picture, we're basically looking through plasma, which is just absolutely mind-blowing.
Wild, very wild. Now we are expecting entry to begin here in about 30 seconds or so. Entry to splashdown is expected to last about 6 minutes long. And that flip maneuver should occur around about 10 minutes before splashdown. And such incredible views that we're getting.
Approaching peak heating region.
Great call outs there.
Yeah, these views are absolutely astounding.
Nose temperatures continue to rise within expected region.
And in your bottom right-hand corner, you can also follow along with the altitude of ship as it's returning back to Earth.
So once again, this view is basically looking down into the plasma blanket that is building up around the exterior of Starship. It is traveling, as you can see on your screen. You can look in the bottom right-hand corner and see how fast it's going, how high it is, as well as the general orientation. Again, we're seeing a lot more stability, a lot more control here on this flight, which is great. It shows that the iterations, the learnings...
Starship is now in expected peak heating region.
All right, great news there, telling us that this is basically the hottest point that Starship should get during its reentry. Now, the heat shield is working with the atmosphere for some free braking, okay? The atmosphere is helping to slow the Starship down.
Yeah, exactly. We're not using any engines or thrust to slow the vehicle down. Exactly what Kate mentioned. We're just using the atmosphere and those heat shield tiles protecting the vehicle as it's coming through that high heat temperature.
Yeah. Now, this is another one of those moments that we have been waiting for. Right now, the ship is currently re entering the Earth's atmosphere, and by all looks and all callouts that we're hearing on the net, it is doing pretty well. Now, we do not plan to recover the spacecraft today, but rapid and reliable reusability is the ultimate goal.
And just pausing to just take in this incredible new and different view that we're seeing. We did get a similar view in Flight 3, but again, the vehicle did lose a little bit of its control, attitude control, and this is a very stable view. This is great. This is exactly what we want, and we are hearing that we're getting expected call-outs.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Starship is seeing half a G of acceleration, remains on a good entry trajectory.
You know, it's incredible to look at this photo and wonder, wait, is it real? Is it frozen? You know, we can see so I was just going to say
Those temperatures have stopped increasing.
Oh, that is great news. The temperature is no longer building. But I was saying, like, we have a little bit of indication there. We can see that streaking occurs and tells us that this is indeed a true view. So once again, we are looking basically through the plasma that is building up around the exterior of the ship.
And I still cannot get over that we are getting a live view of re-entry right now, live on your screen. Again, we've said this over and over, but all thanks to Starlink. We are able to use Starlink in space, which we're getting this incredible data. And not only just the data from the sensors.
Right now we are getting a view of the re-entry of the ship, Starship, back to Earth's atmosphere. You are seeing a plasma built out just around the Starship as it re-enters the Earth atmosphere. Also, you can see a streak of gases, and also we got callouts for the nose cone of the ship. The temperature of the nose cone is now not so much, which we previously got a call out for that it was increasing. So these are good call outs. And now upcoming, we will be seeing a flip maneuver of the Starship before having a controlled and a soft landing, which is a splashdown for today.
See, you're looking down at the aft end of the ship in the top left, and you're seeing essentially the flame build up as we go through reentry. You've been hearing the call outs. They're tracking things like temperatures in the nose cone, and those were right where we modeled them to be, which is really cool to see and to see in real time. But we're coming up. We're at about 67 kilometers in altitude. Our last signal with the ship on Flight 3 was at 65, so we should be making it past that point shortly. Obviously, as you guys pointed out, we're in a much better control this time as we re-entered in the right attitude, and our flaps have been steering the way so far. Once we get through transonic, that's when you've got essentially
Raptor landing bird.
Different areas around the vehicle where the air is either moving faster or slower than the speed of sound. We'll eventually get to subsonic, which we have some experience with. We did in our suborbital campaign.
We did got a call out for the startup of engine chill before the landing burn of Starship.
We're starting to chill some of the engines as we are, if we make it all the way down to the water, still going to attempt a landing burn, but still a ways to go. We're at about 64 kilometers in altitude right now. We made it through what's expected to be the peak heating, but now we're going to start encountering increased pressures as the atmosphere gets thicker and thicker. So we're at 63 kilometers, so we've already made it farther than we did on our last flight when that last signal was coming at 65 kilometers. So again, what we're really looking at here is the performance of the heat shield, of the flaps, of the seals in the flaps. There's just a whole bunch of different areas that we're keeping a really close eye on as we re-enter.
Additionally, we are seeing this stable view of the Starship as it re-enters. Unlike the previous Starship, at this time when it was re-entering, it was rolling rapidly, but thanks to the engineering this time they did on the Starship is not rolling insanely, and it's all because of the control thrusters for improved maneuverability.
Of the vehicle, where we pointed out we had some intentionally missing tiles, where we've got some sensors looking at just how hot it's getting around there. We intentionally put those in essentially the least critical part of the heat shield, where if you had any kind of a breach, it wouldn't be great for reusability, but wouldn't be critical for actual making it through the reentry into the landing. "58 kilometers, we're continuing to descend. Again, right now we are over the Indian Ocean. We're actually getting closer and closer to that expected splashdown point, which is just to the off the northwest corner of Australia. And if you keep an eye on our speed, the speed is dropping. We're hitting the thicker part of the atmosphere now. The speed's going to start dropping precipitously. We're going to start getting to transonic pretty soon, and then after that we'll get into subsonic, where we're moving less than the speed of sound. But wow, what a light show so far!
External temperatures are starting to come down.
Again, this camera view is looking right at one of the forward flaps. And we're strategically putting some cameras around the vehicle to just look at the different areas.
Guess those flaps are getting affected by the because of the high temperature. Those flaps are really affecting.
It's been like watching Interstellar or something.
This is wild to see this, but the ship is still coming down, which is incredible to see.
How far can it go? That is the question.
Keep your eye on the altitude in the bottom right-hand corner. We're at 54 kilometers right now.
Now, ultimately, the data is the payload today. We've been saying it multiple times. Our teams are sitting reviewing this data live.
Hopefully, as the flap got affected, the re-entry will be successful. Hoping for the best.
Improve this design. The goal was to get as far through this high.
Right now, the camera view on the Starship got blocked due to this debris, due to the burn of one of the flap on the Starship.
This is a test, and we are gathering as much data as possible, visual data as well, which we can see here. We are getting a lot of debris covering the camera on your screen, but we can still see some of those sparks and flames from that high heat as ship is making its way back down to Earth.
Ship now at 50 kilometers and closing. The good news is we still got, looks like that camera lens just cracked. It's safe to say ship's getting a little beat up, but that's to be expected on a test flight. We are still learning how to improve the ship for total survival and recovery of the high heat reentry.
I'm honestly impressed that we're still getting this live view despite how much debris is coming off of this flap right now.
The fact that we've got it is good news. And I may have jinxed it. I apologize. Look at that. It's back.
We are still going.
And the teams here at SpaceX are excited, as you can tell by the cheering behind us. There's still a sizable crowd here at Mission Control Center, Hawthorne.
A splashdown is expected in just about 4 minutes from now. And we're still moving. We still have live views. Starlink is
Vehicle
doing
is
an incredible
approaching
job.
maximum entry dynamic pressure. External temperatures are dropping.
Okay, good news.
We are getting to the maximum aerodynamic pressure for the Starship, and the temperature is now dropping. We are not getting good views due to the camera on board the Starship, which got affected by the debris of the one of the flip of the Starship initially. Then it got built up a crack on it due to the extreme heat during the descent through the Earth's atmosphere.
For that flip maneuver, engines first down into the water.
Exactly. So we have seen this flip maneuver demonstrated on previous high altitude flight tests like serial number 8. Oh, more views, or excuse, I should say more light coming through the view that we have through that cracked and dirty lens there. But yeah, so we're hoping that this flip maneuver, that we can pull it off as soon as we get those views back. If we can get them, if the ship is still around, we will bring
Vehicle
it back
has
to you.
passed maximum dynamic pressure.
That is great news. Maximum dynamic pressure being the moment in which the vehicle experiences the greatest amount of aerodynamic pressure.
The Starship has crossed the maximum aerodynamic pressure.
Just like Flight 3, we are targeting a splashdown in the water in the Indian Ocean.
Now we are expecting a splashdown for just less than 3 minutes from now. Before that, the ship will be performing a flip maneuver.
There we got that live view back. The crowd very excited to see that view, despite not being able to see very much.
The fact that it's there tells us the ship is still alive.
Yes, and
For now.
collecting data, continuing to collect data as we get closer and closer to Earth.
Yes, now 30 kilometers, now 29 above the Indian
Starship is at
Ocean.
30 kilometers altitude, Mach 2.
Sounds like the vehicle's traveling, as we just heard, Mach 2, which is, looks like we might, I thought maybe it might clear up. It is a little bit, now at T+1 hour, 3 minutes and 13 seconds into Starship Flight 4, hoping that the ship can hang on. It's probably potentially hanging on by a couple of bolts and threads, but it's still going, and that is excellent news.
That deceleration is looking incredible. We're about to go under 1,000 kilometers per hour.
Yeah.
Starship
And
is at 20 kilometers altitude.
now keep in mind that even though we can't see anything,
Now the altitude for Starship is only 20 kilometers.
we really are
Starship is subsonic.
subsonic. They're telling us
Now we got the subsonic call for the Starship.
that movement means the flaps are actuating. I think we can see something. This is a nail biter. But we are, unfortunately, we can't see through the lens, but we're still getting the feed. Starship is now 11 kilometers over the ocean. All this data is incredibly important, even if, it breaks up right now. Okay, we can see that flap actuating through the glass.
Starship is passing through 10 kilometers altitude.
Okay, the next milestone will be initiation of the flip maneuver and landing burn. Keep an eye on the bottom right corner of your screen for those 3 center engines to relight. They will gimbal or angle so that the ship flips itself back up vertical and hopefully lands in a vertical position.
And the crowd is very excited to get this view.
Right now on your screen on the Starship is now at the 5 kilometers of altitude, and now you can see on your screen that from the telemetry that the Starship is completely horizontal, and now it is changing its direction,
Starship is at 2 kilometers altitude. Terminal
and it started to have the flip maneuver, I guess.
Landing beam startup for Starship.
All right, good news there.
Nominal chamber pressure.
Landing burn startup.
We did got call out for the landing burn startup, and Starship did oriented itself, but
The landing burn shutdown was commanded.
but for now it seems like it again got vertical, no, excuse me, horizontal. Maybe this is a pre-planned thing.
Wow. I mean, it was a little bit of use your imagination as you were going down with what we could actually see, but we were able to hear the ship did its landing burn. It sounded
Starship
like we
landing
might
burn
have got
shutdown.
2 engines. And there's the final call for landing burn shutdown, but we'll go back through all the data, but we did get confirmation that a landing burn took place. Starship made it through re-entry and did its first ever landing burn. From South Texas to the other side of the Earth, Starship is in the water. What a day. What a day, guys. Yeah. That was absolutely incredible. We we got views pretty much the whole way down.
So far it seems like we did got the call out for the landing burn for the Starship, and also we did got the call out for the shutdown of the landing burn. So it seems like they made it through the splashdown, but we didn't got any visual confirmation. So we will be waiting a confirmation from SpaceX about that the splashdown of the Starship.
Space kept its attitude. Successful re-entry through peak heating. We got to see it under flap control through the atmosphere, and we got call out of our first ever ship landing burn after a launch into space. So just really incredible. So I'm going to take some time to collect myself, but wow, that was incredible. I can't wait for the next one. Over to you guys.
It was so loud here. I haven't heard the crowd get that loud probably since liftoff of Flight 1, honestly.
That was incredible. Congratulations to our teammates, to everyone who supported the Starship program. Thanks to all of our future customers for your support. And we'd also like to thank the people of Cameron County, Texas, as well as the Coast Guard, the Federal Aviation Administration, and the government of Mexico. And since Starship got a little bit toasty from that extreme heat of reentry, and we've got our very own Starship right here, let's have a toast of our own.
I've been waiting all morning for this.
Okay, may I?
Light me up. Yeah. Just like Starship, I like this toasty.
I'm keeping this.
Now, we've got more Starship test flights coming to you soon. Be sure to follow the SpaceX account on X for more updates from today's test flight and future Starship tests. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.
And so far today's IFT went well enough compared to the previous one. So with that confirmation of the landing burn landing burn for the Starship, but we didn't got any confirmation for the splashdown of the Starship so far now, but hopefully we will be getting any updates regarding that on the social media. So for today's IFT-4, we did saw for the first time a controlled re-entry and splashdown for the booster, and we did saw a good controlled re-entry for the Starship. Also, it was quite exciting, but was not a good thing to see the flap, one of the flap of the Starship getting affected during re-entry. Hopefully the data SpaceX collected will be helping them to make necessary changes for the next test flight. So with this, we would be concluding our webcast for today. With the conclusion of yet another exciting integrated flight test of Starship, that is the second of this year, and this was quite impressive one compared to all others. We will wrap up our coverage for now. Be sure to check out the social media for any further information regarding the IFT-4 and also for the splashdown of the Starship, if they will be providing any information. We would like to thank all of you joining us with today's launch and hope you all will enjoy the week ahead. Also would like to bid goodbye to Fairmaid and Vlad. Thanks for being there, watching the whole launch and everything. Good night to you all and have a great day ahead. Also, we hope that you all enjoyed the stream. Once again, thanks for joining us, showing your such patience, love and understanding, staying till the end. We are glad to have you all here with us. This is AstroYonder Live and me, Dipta, signing off for now, and we will see you next time.